It's been an interesting week, to say the least, after a bit of a rebound the other day when I was on with you. Yesterday, I was not here for what was a decline overall in all the markets.
Well, you know what, David? I think that we're in a new era of volatility. Every single time we get an up opening, people say, okay, well, I guess that sell-off's over. And when we get the pronounced sell-off, people say, you know what, this sell-off is going to go on for ages. I urge people to step back and just recognize, you know what, we're in a period where there's a lot of vacuum, a lot of people trying to buy when it's going up, a lot of people trying to sell when it's going down, and just interpret that as just being enthusiasm, greed, and then fear, and accept it that it's here to stay, because it's really the undercurrent behind these moves.
Okay, and what does that mean in terms of this so-called playbook that you often offer people who listen to what you have to say?
Sure. It means that if you think that it is going to bounce today because it was down hard yesterday, don't make the first move. Wait to see whether the people who were smart enough to buy at the bottom yesterday flip the stock. If they flip the stock, particularly on a Friday, you might get a better price. I feel like the news itself, if people care, very positive. I mean, Kroger was amazing. We had a good interview with Peloton. Oracle was really good. No one's talking about it. They should be, because it was an exceptional quarter. So you've got the backdrop of good earnings, backdrop of okay macro. But what I am most concerned about is just people, just these, I know I'm going to call them newbies, not having any experience with the market going down. And as they are accelerants on the way down, instead of picking at things that might be attractive. So that does change the coloration of this market. David Costin out with an incredible note, by the way, David, about how if you think that you're diversified and you're diversified mutual fund, you're not, because of this concentration. A really thoughtful note, got it at 10:30, about 10 o'clock last night in second quarter of the game. And it is very, very thoughtful because, and you know, he's a thoughtful analyst at Goldman, because we really are lacking in diversification. We've got two markets. We have tech and we have everything else. And tech is too big versus everything else.
It is shocking sometimes, and it's a point we've made many times over these last few months as well, just in terms of the lack of diversification even in the S&P 500, Jim. And I know many of the people we have on air have also made the same point of so many of the stocks that have been down and down substantially, and yet you look at the index because it is so heavily weighted towards 5 or 6 enormously capitalized names, and it's moved a lot higher, or a decent amount higher, not a lot higher, not like the NASDAQ.
Well, we've got to find out. We got a fulcrum moment here, David. We've got Jamie Dimon saying come back to work. Will it work? I had Encino. Now, this is a little company, maybe people don't know, but it makes banking software for the cloud. And they're saying, you know what? They may think that Jamie Dimon has the sway here, but Jamie is giving you that little, but could be end up being big hole that if you're with your kids or if you're part of a protected class, you don't have to come. But what I think has happened is David's not going to go back that way. Yes, there are training people who have to come in. But when you see the software that people have to work at home, when you see the productivity, when you see how little time is spent versus an hour and a half on the tube going to Canary Wharf, you know that as much as Jamie might want people back, work at home is the driver of tech, and it's not going away.
No, it's not. You're referring, of course, to the story in the Journal, and we can confirm that as well. But, you know, when you're on a trading floor, when you still gain a benefit from knowing what your colleagues know in a real-time way by yelling at them or being able to walk over them, there is a benefit to that, Jim. And by the way, there's a benefit to being in person with your colleagues generally, particularly if you are somebody who is younger, trying to get acculturated at a particular company or corporation, and trying to get ahead. I mean, I think, you know, we haven't accounted for all those things, although, as we've said many times, there is going to be a percentage long after this that chooses to stay home, and the bosses are not going to have a problem with that.
Well, you're right. Look, I was a teacher at Goldman. I would teach on Friday night. I particularly like to teach from Friday night from 8 to 11 p.m., and then gave a quiz at the end of 11, and, of course, published the names of the people who finished bottom 5 on Monday, because that was the way I like to handle things. That was pre-Jimmy Chill. But there's no way you can know anybody in your team unless you're there, and by doing it in Zoom, you can hide behind Zoom, David. It's incredible. I'm not saying it's probably Zoom like your little box on the right, and you can be, but at the same time, I mean, you can be reading the sports pages. So I agree with you. It's important to come back. But, David, the subway, they just discovered the concept of the mask. I think there are a lot of people who are readjusting their lives. Do you think Michael Corbat resigned yesterday solely because it was the day to name Ms. Frazier the CEO. I think there's a lot of soul searching going on, and we're not supposed to be soul searchers. He is 60 years old, Mike. I think people, Kelly Cramer, the fabulous CFO at Cisco, leaving. Why? Well, it's time. David, they're soul searching from people who we thought were soulless, and they're not. And what that also means is no one wants to die getting to work. And I love the idea that we've suppressed numbers, but how many times do I have to hear cold and flu season? I don't want to get in the subway cold and flu season to get back to work.